Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
We will continue with the maintenance and repair. We have been talking about the substructure, superstructure and foundation, strengthening of foundation. Then we also have been talking about the different types of material or the masonry. We are talking about the stone, and we will continue with that. First we will talk about some of the examples of the maintenance and repair and conservation of the stone structure in India. Let us talk about the Sun Temple of Kunara. It's in World Heritage Sites. We have discussed that many times, and it is, let us see what is the material it is made of. It is made of condylite stone. It is a highly ferruginous condylite stone. So, what it happened is that it has a lot of iron schist within that. It is called granitiferous material. So, their content is that iron, and that is actually one has to understand that what type of damages or decay what is happening there. Now, if you just broadly see that what it has undergone is that the weathers into a sandy rock with red and brown streaks and patches. So, the weathering is very predominant factor, because that ferruginous material, it sort of decays when it comes in contact with the water, and the sculpture eroded, and as a process the alkalis leached out, and which led to the irregular surface. Oxidation of ferrous into the ferric iron, where the greenish color to the reddish tint. So, that is what happened because of the chemical changes happening because of the composition of this particular type of stone. And the soluble salts which are carried by the, so the location is very important, it is very close to the sea. Soluble salts carried by the wind and deposited on the stone, and that caused further problem. And also because due to the accumulate water due to the coastal rain seeping out through the structures and the sculptures, and interiors covered with moss and lichen. So, these are the broadly the types of problems which were found in Konark temple, and and also the dowels which are used, the stones were there, but some sort of an iron dowels are used, and that were corroded because of not only the water, but the salinity of the water, and which corroded, and it causes a crack to the stone. So, these are the broadly the major types of defects which were found in Konark stone. Now, I must mention that I am using that reference which I have given, that it is 1979. So, I am sure that Archaeological Survey is continuously doing other measures, other preventive measure, repair work, and they have improved, and so one has to take help of them to understand what are the basic things, but I am following these reference where some of the broad type of measures which repair measures which are there and understanding. Now, what are the protective measures which happen in Konark temple? One is there is a small scale repair. That included clearance of vegetation or resettling of the loose stones which came out, pointing and filling of the crevices. These were being continuously done. These are small scale repairs, and as you can see that some pointing also has been done there to keep. It has not been reconstructed, whatever there, it was an anastylosis process, but keeping the stones in that position and doing some repair work was very important of this particular type of stone. And then some of the other measures were also taken. The platform was grouted with liquid cement. Grouting we have talked about when we talked about consolidation. The grouting with the liquid cement mixed with sand and ironite. Ironite is an inert waterproofing material through hundreds of drilled holes through the surface, and so that to give a sort of a strength to the terracing with, because there is no water accumulation, the terracing was required. Terracing with fresh lime concrete mixed with cement and ironite, and rusted iron clamps were replaced with the copper ones, and chemical treatment by way of removal of moss and lichen, elimination of injurious salts, which are accumulating and coming with the salt air with the air. These injurious salts by application of paper pulp. We have already explained the paper pulp treatment and fungicidal treatment. Broadly, these were some of the measures which have been taken by ASI, and also to steps to prevent accumulation of the stagnant water in the foundation and reversing the slope wherever necessary. There, of course, in case of Konarak, the major problem is that the structure which is still sealed and there is a stone inside, that is a major challenge which is happening. A major restoration method is going on even at the moment. I am not talking about that, I am just talking about the preventive measures, the maintenance care, the repair which has been done in a small scale or over the years to keep that in the preservation state. Let us talk about the Gol Gumbaj in Bijapur. It is also another very interesting structure known for its dome and the acoustic property of the dome. Let us see what are the types of deterioration which happen in Gol Gumbaj. First of all, falling of the salt infected plaster and the rusty iron dowels weakening the brick core of the dome. It is a masonry structure of brick, and the cracks in the plaster which happen. So, let us see what are the protective measures which were taken in this case. Now, this is basically is a masonry structure made of brick and plaster and some stones which were there. So, it is a composite material structure. So, first of all, the grouting of the cracks which happened, and the dome exterior was made watertight by special cement granite, 1 part of Portland cement to 3.5 parts of sand. That composition is important, and again the experts who have been experienced in such restoration measures and maintenance measure, they can only say that what is required. And inner plaster was stripped off, followed by application of the granite shell of varying thickness, because it is a huge dome. So, how the plaster will be relaid, that was also very important to understand, and the new plaster matching the color of the existing dome. This is how it was repaired, and the stainless steel hook, you see that this iron is no longer, wherever there is an iron dowels or any iron joinery, any clamps, hooks and other thing, they are always replaced with the rust proof either stainless steel or copper hooks or things. So, this is a very important part, and these are the some of the measures which happen in Gol Gumbaj. Let us talk about another World Heritage Site, which is the Elephant Caves and the sculptures within that. Sorry, there is a spelling mistake, it is actually Elephant Caves, and this is rock cut caves which is there, and there is a lot of problems in that. Let us see the type of deterioration which happened there. It is a disintegration due to action of injurious sea salt. So, you see the location, something which is close to the sea, there sometimes most of the time it is Afin Mahabalipuram, Elephant Caves, Konarak, all of these are problem due to the salinity in the water and air. So, disintegration due to action of injurious sea salts absorbed by the porous rock and the seepage of water into the structure. So, the water is coming through the top of the structure, and that was creating the problem. You can see the signs of that, the damage and the moss and fungus leaching which is happening on the roof. And in this case, there are also problems of some of the columns which are supporting the structure were missing. It is a rock cut structure, and that required a lot of other measures, very drastic measure which has to be taken. Now, let us see what are in general the protective measures which were taken that time. The removal of all the earth, vegetation and disintegrated rock from top of the cave, because that is where the water is coming, and it is very much required to stop that. And cement grouting under pressure from the top and back side of the cave. So, there is no water seepage through the cracks. So, the grouting was done, and repeated application of paper pulp, in this case also you see, to reduce the salt concentration, and deteriorated columns replaced by plain ashlar masonry to hold the roof. Many of these columns have been rebuilt to or constructed to hold the roof, and how they were done and other, there is some controversy, but let us see that in this case plain ashlar masonry were there. and the loose or cracked parts of the sculpture internally secured with non-rusting metal dowels. Some of the sculptures or structures and they are actually part of it missing. There is no attempt to rebuild that, but whatever is there to hold them in place was very important. So, non-rusting metal dowels were required and they were secured with that, and cracks filled up with suitably colored mortar. So, these are in general the protective measures which are done for the elephant caves and the sculptures, and probably now and it is continuous method process which is going on. There is a lot of tourist pressure, the other types of problems which are happening. I think it is a continuous process which happen and happening, and ASI is taking care of that, and as you know that is a World Heritage Site, a very important part. Let us talk about Ellora. Ajanta Ellora are again the rock cut structures, and they have their almost a similar problem, but somewhere it is also very different. You can see that so let us see what is the rock type. The rock type is a Deccan trap basalt, it is a different type of rock, and the type of deterioration which happen is a gradual exfoliation of stone when exposed to the atmosphere, which is very different the one we have seen in the elephant caves, and reducing to the clay is one of the major problem. There were signs of disintegration. You can clearly look at the roof here and you can see that some sort of a problem is there, and imperfect drainage and water accumulation. I always mention that water sometimes water itself is not a problem. The accumulation and the stagnant water is a problem. So, the proper drainage and stopping the seepage, that is a very important measure. So, here you can see the seepage of water through the ceiling and walls was again another problem. So, let us see what are the protective measures which happen here. The provision of surface drain. So, the drainage of the water around the caves is very important. Cement grouting of the cracks, erection of the masonry supports, and inserting coupled dowels to fix loose parts of the sculptures to the wall, almost similar to what we have seen in the elephant caves, and the minimum restoration of missing parts of the sculptures and pillars by cement concrete to stabilize precariously hanging portion. These are the again you see that the principle of the minimum intervention was followed here. Whatever was required, it was done. Another problem in these caves, both Ajanta and Ellora, is there is a large number of visitors who visit that, and there is a these frescoes are there, sometimes sculptures are there. So, different types of in a very close environment due to the humidity and other, it creates a problem. So, now there is a visitor management which is in place, and also the problem of vandalism is also there. And another thing which has been done is that if you remember that we have talked about the bats. So, provision of doors to the shrines to stop bat and the bird nuisance. These are some of the protective measures which will happen there, and I am sure lot more is happening. There is a sort of a restriction on the number of visitors, there is restriction of the taking photograph and using the flashlight other. So, some sort of a precautionary measure, management measure which is there. And recently the Japanese government has also put a lot of afforestation around these caves to control the temperature, the environmental control, temperature, humidity and other in a large scale which has been done. So, these are some of the protective measures which has been happening in the Ellora. So, while discussing some of the major repair and maintenance methods of all these well known structures in India, let us talk about the mortar joints, which is again a very important part of the maintenance and the repair method. Now, mortar joints, these are when debonded, cracked or deteriorated, because they hold the ashlar, the stone or the bricks in place. So, debonded, cracked or deteriorated mortar joints is the most common means of water entry into a brick on the stone wall. And over the years it sort of deteriorates, and that time what has to be done, how to do it, what is the technique, which material has to be used, are very important to understand. Like in here you can see that is a brick structure and how the brick has weathered, the mortar joints have sort of deteriorated, and these will cause on further deterioration of the structure. Ultimately it will collapse if not much precaution or maintenance methods are not taken care of. But sometimes even something has been done, it can also be very injurious. Like in this particular case of the brick wall, what you can see is that the cement pointing has been done there, the mortar joint, and that is something again more dangerous, because the way it is done and the material has been used, because it is a much more stronger material which has been used for the pointing. And then what happens is that the water cannot come out of that. First of all, the way it has been done is not proper, the debris has not been cleaned, and so, and it is a stronger material. So, what happened with the temperature fluctuation and other, this is strong. One has a sort of a belief that if you give a stronger material for the joining, that is better. It is absolutely wrong, that because the joining should be shouldn't be, it should hold the thing together, but it shouldn't be stronger, because in that case what happens, the original material itself, in that case the brick, that becomes deteriorated faster. The joints is a stronger material, and they do not behave in unison with the temperature fluctuation and other thing, and it cannot breathe. The water which goes inside, that cannot come out through the pores, then it will try to come out through the bricks itself or the material itself, and that cause more problem and the damage. So, these are two cases, that where something has been done which is injurious and causing further problem, and where in this case the something has nothing has been done. So, in such cases pointing needs to be done. The pointing is the most effective and permanent ways of decreasing water entry into brickwork and the stonework also. Here this is a Bishnupur, you can see that pointing has been done with the lime mortar, and in this case some of the new bricks also have been added, you can make out that, and some cases the it has been pointing has been done with the new lime mortar. So, what is repointing? As I say, this is the most important part of the maintenance and repair, how it is done, what type of material has to be used for repointing. So, it is a process of removing the deteriorated or distressed mortar. So, first it has to be taken out, there are techniques of doing that, the cleaning and other things, then only the repointing has to be done. From the, so it is a deteriorated or distressed mortar which has to be removed from the joints between the masonry units and installing new mortar into the joints. The different techniques for that, the skill is required. Now, let us see again, we continue with the more pointing. With the pointing is not only the skill, here you can see the stone wall is at Himachal Pradesh, Kangra fort, which has been, is a photograph from there, the pointing has been done, it is a A-type protected site. So, pointing is actually the binding materials and the mortar, and what material, how it will be done, again I am repeating that is a very important thing. So, here you can see the composition is very important. Here some of the indicators, some of the common material which is lime. Quick lime is used to prepare the lime putty, it is again is a process which is a very traditional system. Sand, coarse and fine sand for the local resources, brick dust what we call locally as shurki. The methi, the fenugreek, it has also a property, it has been traditionally used. The jute in plaster, it has the, it sort of acts as a binding material. The jaggery, which also as an adhesive, and the brick, mud mortar for masonry repair work, and groundwater or potable water. The quality of water also has to be neat. This is a general sort of a prescription, but place to place, structure to structure, depending on which period it was built, this composition may vary, and we must sort of try to see that what was the original material, and there are, it has to be tested in the lab for proper composition, proper specification, and then only one can go and see that what type of material has to be used for pointing. And as I say, the material is important. Adhesive definitely can be mixed, but one has to be very cautious, what is the adhesive, in what proportion, what is its impact on the major masonry work, and the skill, that how it has to be done, and the cleaning, the processing, there is a step by step procedure which has to be taken properly care of. So, as I say, pointing in the old masonry structure is a very important part in terms of skill and the material. Now, when we talk about the brickwork, you see this is from North Bengal, Malda and Gourd, there are a lot of historical structures there, and there were old ceramic tiles, there were color which were there, and if, as you can see that some of the portion of the bricks are original and some of the bricks have been replaced. And when the bricks have been replaced and some have been cleaned, And so, when had been replaced, when do we replace that? So, this is in case the extreme deterioration of the historic brickwork, it can be replaced. And so, the part is that the carefully cut out the worst affected areas. It does not mean you take out the whole wall, only the part which is very badly affected, you take out that part, carefully cut out and replace that with sound new bricks matching with the original in dimension, in color, in texture and physical characteristics. So, this is a very good example where ASI has been doing over the years, carrying out restoration work, maintenance work, and they have been kept there. As you can see that some part is old, there are the marks of original color or the ceramic tiles, and they have been kept in place. Only the place which has been badly deteriorated, the bricks have been replaced. And new mortar with old brickwork should normally be lime based, and this is again and again which is very important. The lime where it was used, it was a slow setting, it has its own property, it is much more compatible, the material wise, the use of cement is not at all desirable. Some admixture can be given, that again I am saying after tasting and depending on what is the behavior. So, as I say again, the new mortar with old brick is required, sometimes should normally be lime based and be applied as dry as possible to avoid the shrinkage. So, these are some of the major maintenance and repair methods which I have talked about, and as you can see that this needs a high skill, lot of knowledge for each and every specific structure. It needs a multidisciplinary strict, the structural engineers, the materials specialists, the laboratory experiment, the skill and training of the craftsmen or the laborers, mason, and the botanist who can talk about what is the thing, the chemist. ASI in Archaeological Survey of India, they have a very multidisciplinary team who have been continuously working on this, and these are some of the maintenance and repair method we have talked in a very briefly in these 2 lectures. So, with this we are coming to this sort of we discussed so far about the historical monuments and their repair, the decay, documentation process. What we will talk about in the next module is that we will talk a little more macro scale. That means, it is not only the individual structure, it is also what is important is that the areas, the historic area districts where there are some old structure, new structure, how they happen. So, our next focus in the next 2 modules will be talking about the historic district areas, the adaptive reuse, the new structures, and later on we will go again, we will come back to that some of the disaster mitigation methods which we will talk about at the end. So, this is we are completing one phase of the discussion of the various aspect of the conservation of the historic structures. Thank you.